Welcome to session 2 of Courage to Feel Again. And in this session, I would like to explore bringing compassionate awareness to our current experiences. And when I say current experience, I mean our emotions, our thoughts, our physical sensations, whatever is happening in our body and our nervous system, and how we can provide some distance, not to detach, not to separate from, or disassociate from, but rather be with in a state of compassionate awareness. And that state of compassionate awareness might feel new to you, or maybe it's something that you have already been practicing. But either way, compassionate awareness is a lot easier when we remember or when we know that we are not our emotions. We are not our thoughts. We are currently experiencing an emotion or a thought. But it's really that distance, that compassionate awareness comes in when we remember that we are not those things, so that we don't identify with them. It doesn't make them any less valid. It doesn't make them any less real or important. They absolutely are. It is our current experience. But the compassionate awareness piece is huge because oftentimes we can judge or shame ourselves for our current experience, whatever may be happening, because we might not like what we are currently experiencing. And it's understandable because some things are really uncomfortable and maybe we don't want to be experiencing that, and that makes sense. So that's valid. And if we were to take a step back and that practice of compassionate awareness, it's really helpful to create that distance, say, oh yes, I am currently experiencing anxiety. I am currently experiencing frustration, whatever emotion you are experiencing. And it helps to know that separation so that we're not identifying with it. We can be with it without identifying with it. And that deeper step back helps us realize that there's a higher part of you, a truer part of you that is doing the awareness, is practicing the observation, right? So if this doesn't totally make sense, that's okay. We're going to explore it through practice. If this is clicking for you, then great. But either way, we're just going to dive in. So if you'd like, you could meet me in a seated shape or any shape of your choice. And it would be very helpful to have 2 blocks today. We're going to use blocks really heavily. Blankets, as usual. I'm sitting on a folded blanket, but you can have whatever props that you like to have. And I'll meet you here in whatever shape you want to be in. And you might decide to close your eyes, or you might decide to keep your eyes open. If you choose to leave your eyes open, it might be helpful to rest your eyes down the bridge of your nose on an unmoving space in front of you, giving your vision a point of focus. And to start our session today, I'd like to take you through the 5 layers of the self, also known as the Panchamaya Kosha model. So, in your own timing, you could simply become aware of your physical body. Noticing your muscles, your ligaments, your bones, each of your vertebrae. And just really taking stock of how your physical body feels in this moment. You might even become aware of any area in your body that might be holding tension. And you don't have to do anything about that. You don't have to change it. You don't have to force it to be different. You don't have to wish it to be different. Just simply notice. Ah, yes, my jaw's a little tight. Ah, yes, my shoulders are a little tense. And if your body naturally responds, that's okay too. But I encourage you to simply be with your current experience as you bring compassionate awareness to it. Shifting your mind's eye to your breath whenever you're ready. Same thing here. You don't have to change your breath, but rather just notice the rhythm your breath is currently making. Perhaps when you brought your awareness to your breath, your breathing started to change. And if so, that's okay. You don't have to stop that change. If it felt natural to take a deep breath in and let it out, feel free to do that. Just resting your awareness on your breath. This breath layer is also the layer that contains hormones and your energetic body, such as your nervous system and other systems of the body. So maybe checking in with anything here that feels in alignment with you, perhaps your digestive system or your immune system, your nervous system. Is there anything that sticks out to you that's kind of present for you in this moment? Your endocrine system, aka your hormones. Taking a moment to just feel and check in. With your next exhale, starting to separate from this layer as we move on to the next. Perhaps taking a conscious inhale through your nose. And floating your awareness up into your head space. So this is the area where your thoughts are, your mind, your memories, your imagination. So simply noticing what kind of pace your mind is moving at in this moment. And where does your awareness first go? Perhaps there's a thought that has been on repeat, or maybe your mind feels a little bit more clear in this moment. Whatever's present for you. Kind of allowing that awareness to unfold as if you are looking at a movie screen and you are sitting in the audience. You yourself are not the movie screen or the pictures that are playing across it, but you are simply sitting back, watching the movie screen. There's a healthy degree of separation, not ignoring, not denying, just simply in awareness, not identifying. Beginning to leave behind this layer with your exhale. I invite you to take a conscious inhale in. As you breathe out, settling into your wisdom body. So this is the part of you that contains your intuition, your inner wisdom. It's the part of you that makes meaning of your experiences and the stories that unfold in our lives. And so here you might simply notice if there is a story unfolding right now about your current experience. No judgment, just curiosity and compassion. And with your next exhale, leaving behind this layer, maybe taking a deep breath in as we take our final layer. Settling into your heart space. This is your bliss layer. Part of you that connects with a higher power if you have one. A part of you that connects with others. And yourself. And so you might simply just ask yourself today, how does my heart feel in this moment? And then observe what your current experience is. One last breath here. And then we'll begin to move out of the layers the way that we came in. So with a breath, beginning to move from your heart space back into your wisdom body, floating up into your head space, and down into your breath, and back into your physical body until you can feel where your body is touching the floor or prop beneath you. Noticing the weight of your body sinking down to this connection point. Noticing the groundedness in your body, in this connection point. Perhaps adding some movement into your hands or your feet or anywhere else in your body. reconnecting with this physical layer. I offer you a simple affirmation for class today if you'd like to use it. And it is, I experience my emotions and thoughts with compassionate awareness. I experience my emotions and thoughts with compassionate awareness. Feel free to alter that in any way if it better suits you in a different way, or create your own for today's practice. And we'll definitely need a block nearby, so go ahead and grab one if you have it. If you don't have a block, that's okay. Go ahead and grab a book for this first thing that we're gonna do. Well, you can set it aside for a second. And starting to feel into your spine, as you're ready, you might inhale and reach your arms up overhead, stretching up towards the sky, maybe taking a wrist roll. Exhaling out. Maybe you join me for one more. Inhaling, reaching up. And this time, as you exhale, you could take your right hand and place it on your back. So it's like you're patting yourself on your back, wherever it lands. And then taking your left hand over to your right elbow. Option to take another breath in. And then as you exhale, you might slowly start to just lean on over to the side. So you could take like a lateral stretch, a side stretch, or if that feels unstable, you could just gently pull your elbow back a little bit and stay at center. So whatever works for you. We'll just take one more breath. And then inhale right on up. Maybe lower the hands down. Allow your blood pressure in your arms to regulate. And then other side. If you want to take it with me, inhaling the arms up. Exhale, left hand pats yourself on your back. Right hand can come to your left elbow, and you might stay here at center, just gently drawing the left elbow back, or you could draw back and then lean on over toward the right. And right up back to center. Releasing the arms. Maybe rolling through your shoulders for a moment, if that feels welcome. Noticing any sensations in your arms from that movement. My arms are feeling warm. I'm feeling that sensation. And then go ahead and take one block or your book, whatever you have, and hold it in your palm, on your palm. So we're not gripping the block. We're just setting it on top of our hand like it's a platter. And then extending our arm out in front of us. Inhaling, you could start to lift that platter, rotating your arm with it as you reach on back. Making a big circle, then bringing it right back to the front. Making another circle. Taking a few more at your own pace. Noticing that, yes, there's some balance happening, but it also requires more muscle control. All right, let's do our last one. And then bringing it in front of us, switching hands. Same thing here. Big circles. Might bring some awareness to your shoulder blade and how it's moving down your back each time you reach your arm back. Last one. And we'll release our block. As we begin to come into a tabletop shape, we will need our blocks again though. If you don't have blocks, that's okay. You don't have to use them, but again, this is a pretty prop or block heavy practice. So you could have a blanket underneath your knees. I definitely prefer to have one. And then having your blocks in front of you, we'll come into a tabletop shape with our hands on our blocks. And there's two choices here. I'm gonna opt for more space today, which means that instead of having my blocks in my hands directly underneath my shoulders, like how they are right here, I'm actually going to walk my blocks and my hands forward so that there's kind of a slight angle here. So it's not a ton, but it just gives me a little bit more space. So you can choose for yourself, and you might even change your mind later and try a different one, but you can make that choice. All right. So coming here into our kind of lifted tabletop, taking this opportunity to kind of feel into your body, maybe rocking or swaying from side to side, front to back. Here you might send your hips all the way back to your heels and then draw them all the way forward. Notice here that we can enter into somewhat of a version of like upward facing dog without it being so intense because we have our blocks. So a few exploratory movements. And then if and when you're ready, you might start to explore a cat-cow. So inhaling and slowly allowing your spine to drape down toward your mat. And then as you exhale, you could start to round through your spine, perhaps tucking your chin and tailbone toward one another. Inhaling to reverse. Continuing at your own pace, creating your own rhythm that feels right to you. You might stay here as option one, or the next time you curl your spine up toward the ceiling, you could allow your hips to shift back toward your heels, kind of like you're in a child's pose a little bit. And then inhale, shift yourself forward. And allow yourself to come into this version of up dog. And then maybe send yourself back again. So this is option two. There's no right or wrong. It really just depends on what you prefer. And wherever you're at, we'll take another one full round of movements. All right, I'll meet you right back at center. Option to stretch your legs out if that feels welcome. And then we'll settle into a child's pose. So your knees might go a little bit further than hip distance, and then your big toes back behind you could touch. As we send our hips back toward our heels. And I'd like to use the blocks here as well, and you have a couple options. Option one You might need to move the blocks a little bit closer to you. But option 1 is no blocks. You can just enter into your child's pose as you see fit. Option 2, if you'd like to use the blocks, you could place your elbows on your blocks. Bring your hands together as you allow your forehead, your chest, your shoulders, everything to just settle down towards the earth. And then you could allow your hands that are touching your palms to settle back toward your spine, just wherever they naturally land. And I invite you to take another 7 rounds of breath here. Notice that the block underneath your elbow has 3 different settings: low, medium, high. I automatically went to medium because that's just what feels good for my body. But if you are at medium and you're noticing that the stretch is just a little bit more than what your body wants in this moment, you could lower the blocks a setting and notice if that helps. I experience my emotions and thoughts with compassionate awareness. Whatever your current experience is, remembering that you can experience them with compassionate awareness because there's a healthy separation, not ignoring, not denying, just remembering that, oh, I'm experiencing this, but I am not my emotion. I am not my actual thought. It's just something that's visiting for a moment, and I can be in this experience without judgment. Option to stay here if this shape is still serving you. If you're ready to move out of it, you can start to straighten out your arms, walk your hands back. Take a second to lift your head. If you feel a little dizzy or lightheaded, that's okay. That's just your blood pressure doing some work. And then you might start to shift yourself forward. And I invite you to take a downward facing dog with the blocks. Now, this just creates so much more space. You might even notice that it's a little bit easier to come into down dog because of the blocks. So I'm going to keep my blocks here at the medium height. I'm going to walk them forward a little bit. Now, there's a couple different ways you could do this. You could grip the blocks. I like to actually kind of press my heel of my palm against like the edge of the block, and because the mat is here, it'll hold, but check and make sure that your block isn't going to slip out from underneath you. So just be mindful and adjust as needed. And then if and when you're ready, you could tuck your toes, breathe in and start to lift your hips. Maybe keep your knees bent for this first time, and I'm even going to take my feet to that right and left side edge of my mat so that I have even more space. And then option 2, release one heel and then the other as you kind of pedal out your feet. Or if your hamstrings are feeling ready, you could just release both heels to the floor. But we'll take the next 5 to 6 rounds of breath here. Couple more breaths. Last breath. If you're ready to release, you might start to lower your knees back down to your mat. Option to sit back onto your heels for a moment to give your arms a break. This is a very shoulder, chest, heavy practice as we're opening up our heart center. So just taking a moment, maybe even rolling your wrists out. And then when you're ready to continue moving, I'll meet you back at our blocks. And here we have a couple choices. So I'd like to take puppy pose with our blocks, but if that is not something your body is ready for, because it's a really big chest, heart, and shoulder opener, you can return to our child's pose with the blocks. Okay? So a couple options. So child's pose with the blocks, or you can join me here. This one takes maybe a second to get into just because you have to adjust the space. So I like to walk a little bit further back. I'm gonna move my blanket with me. And then keeping your hips roughly over your knees, give or take. So you might notice that when you come into it, if you're too close to your blocks, you'll end up with your hips really far back, more like over your heels. And if so, then that means that we have to adjust a little bit. So that'll be kind of like your measuring stick, if you will. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna have the blocks about shoulder distance apart, and then we're gonna walk our arms or our hands over our blocks. My hands are resting off of the blocks, and I'm okay with that. But if you don't like that, you would just simply walk your blocks forward even more. And then begin to lower down. So your blocks could be at 3 different heights. The lowest setting is going to be a little bit less of a sensation. This is your lowest setting. Medium, high. Obviously the highest setting is going to be a really big sensation. Maybe that's what your body wants today. Maybe it's not. I'm going to stay at the medium height, but you can adjust and find what works for you. Now you might notice that when you come into this, if you don't have any abdominal engagement and you're just allowing your spine to just kind of drape down toward the floor, you could do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But if that's causing some discomfort in your spine, you might apply just a little bit of core engagement so that your spine doesn't enter into such a back bend, and the stretch and the focus of this shape is mostly in the shoulders and the chest. So you can leave this shape whenever you want, but I invite you to be here with me for the next 4-ish rounds of breath. But as always, it's your choice. You can leave sooner, you can stay longer. Last breath. Okay, to come out of this, definitely need some core engagement to protect your spine. So if you don't have that, go ahead and engage a little bit. Start to lift the head. Walk one hand back and then the other. Whew, that's a big one. Option to sit back for a moment. Take the weight off of your arms, off of your upper body. Pausing here for a second. I invite you to join me on our stomachs. And if lying on your stomach is not an option for you today, I have a second option. So, option number one is thread the needle from child's pose. This is the I don't want to lay on my stomach option. So, coming into child's pose, but instead of walking your hands all the way out, you could stay lifted for a moment and inhale, reach one arm back. I'm gonna start with my right arm, and then exhale, needle it through, right hand, palm face up, bringing your right shoulder to the mat, only going as far as you want to go. So this is where we would end up here. Okay, if you don't mind being on your stomach and you're curious for the second option, you could meet me there. And it's going to be a very similar shape. So your left hand could extend out in front of you so that you have some space here to thread your arm through. And then inhale, reaching back. I'm starting with my right arm again. And then exhale, right palm face up as we bring the right shoulder to the floor. You could bring your left arm in front of you, maybe using it as a pillow as we settle in here. So two choices depending on what your body needs today. There is no wrong choice. I invite you to be here for the next 6 to 7 rounds of breath. I experience my emotions and thoughts with compassionate awareness. About 2 more rounds of breath. If you feel complete, because if you don't, you can stay here as long as you want. But if you are ready, you might begin to take your left hand, place it in front of your face, and press on up, maybe giving your right arm a stretch back to rebound a little bit. And then you could switch it up for the other side with me, if you're ready for that. So you could extend your right arm. Inhale, extend your left arm back. And then exhale, needle it through. Adjusting as needed in whichever shape you are in. Only going as far as you want to go today. There's no rules, no regulations, just you, your body, and your practice. About 6 more breaths here. One more. If you feel complete, you might begin to press your right hand into your mat. Stretching yourself and unraveling. And then you could join me in rolling on over onto your back. I'd like to take one more shape before we enter into our time of rest, and that shape is bridge pose. So have a block nearby, just in case you want it, because we have some options here, as always. So option one, well, actually, before we do that, you might pull your knees in toward your chest if your lower back is feeling a little funky, and maybe rock from side to side for just a second, just to give your lower back a little bit of release before we enter into this back bend, this heart opening shape. Okay. Option one is with the block. And remember, we have 3 different settings for the block. If you don't have a block and you would like to take a supported bridge pose, you could also use a bolster. The bolster would just slide up underneath, just like the block will. Okay, so having your feet planted on the floor, feeling nice and grounded, about hip distance apart, give or take. And we're gonna do, or you have the option to do, a little tuck and roll with your shoulders. You don't have to do this, but it is a variation. It's another option. So pressing your feet, your heels into the ground so that you can lift your hips up off of the earth. This is where I'll show you the tuck and roll with your shoulders. I'm going to leave my hands down at my sides, and I'm going to shift my weight over into my right shoulder, and then I'm going to tuck and roll. Notice how my whole arm follows, and then set my left shoulder back down. Weight shifts on over to the left, tuck and roll through the right, and now the weight is distributed on both of my shoulders. I've created a little shelf here. So here is option one, no block, just holding this shape, celebrating the strength of your body, noticing what comes up for you. Maybe the block is something you want. So you could pick your level and then avoiding your tailbone. And that's just because we really don't want to injure ourselves. So sliding the block above your tailbone. It's not on your tailbone. It's on your lumbar spine area. Well, not really. It's more of your coccyx. So sliding that above the tailbone to where it feels really stable and secure. You might have to adjust it. You can feel your own body. And then resting here. So block or no block, you decide. I welcome you to be here for the next 5 rounds of breath. Last breath. If you have a block underneath you, you could press your heels into the floor, lift your hips and slide the block or the bolster away, lower your hips down. You can set the block to the side. And then before we draw our knees in toward the chest, it might be helpful to just allow your spine a moment to rebound kind of at center. So I like to just leave my hips on the floor for a moment, but you could kind of rock your knees and your hips from left to right a little bit. I find that that can be relieving, but you don't have to. And then after a few moments, if you want to, you could pull your knees in toward your chest. Maybe continue to rock. And then we'll begin to set up for our time of rest, our Shavasana. You might decide to stay right here on the floor, lying on your back, maybe sliding a bolster or a blanket underneath your knees to support your lower back, or simply keeping your feet planted on the floor if that feels welcome, or you could stretch them out long. You could also choose to move away from this shape completely. If you prefer to lie on your stomach, lie on your side, or take a seated shape, or take maybe the legs up the wall, anything goes here. There's no wrong answer. You can choose whatever feels most restful for you. So go ahead and take a moment to set up and arrive in your time of rest shape. And we'll be here for the next 4 to 5 minutes. And even though I'm going to be quiet for the remainder of this rest period, just know that I am right here with you. So if you'd like, once you're settled, you might join me for one cleansing breath, starting with a full exhale out, and then breathing in deeply. Shavasana. There's no rush to end this time of rest if you do not yet feel complete. And at any point that you do feel complete, you might begin by taking a deep breath in and out, perhaps adding some small movements back into your body. If you're lying on your back and you're ready to move out of this time of rest, you could roll onto your side for just a moment. When you decide to, you could press yourself up. Coming into any seated shape. If you'd like, you could join me with hands at heart center or anywhere else you prefer. You might join me for one collective breath, starting by exhaling all of your air out. And then we'll breathe in together. Thank you for joining me for practice today. If you have any questions, please reach out. My hope for you is that you feel safe, connected, and at home in your body. Thank you.